Most people never noticed her. Every night when the city slowed down and the lights in the offices stayed on just a little longer, she quietly appeared. Not through the front door, but through the side entrance, the one no one paid attention to. Her name was Lynn. But in that building, she didn't really have a name. She was just the cleaning lady. She arrived at 9 p.m. every night. When employees were finishing their work, packing their bags, talking about dinner plans, or scrolling on their phones, she began her shift. Slowly, silently. She pushed her small cart across the floor. A bucket, a few cloths, some cleaning supplies, nothing special. But her movements were careful, almost gentle, as if every desk, every chair, every small object mattered. She never rushed, even when no one was watching. Especially when no one was watching. Some nights, a few employees stayed late. They would see her, but rarely looked at her. Sometimes, they didn't even move their feet when she cleaned around them, just slightly lifted them, without a word. And she would nod, a small, polite nod, even though they didn't notice. She never complained, not once, because for her, this job was not just a job. It was a promise. Every night, after finishing one floor, she would take a short break. 5 minutes, no more. She would sit near the window at the end of the hallway, take out an old phone, and look at a single photo. A young boy, smiling, wearing a school uniform. His name was Min, her son, but no one in that building knew that, and no one knew something even more important. Min didn't live with her. He lived in another city, far away, studying, chasing a dream that once felt impossible. Every month, almost all of Lynn's salary disappeared. Not on herself, not on comfort, but sent quietly to pay for tuition, books, a small rented room. She lived simply, very simply. Her meals were small, her clothes were old, but she never hesitated when it came to one thing, Min's future. Because years ago, she made a decision, a quiet one, the kind that doesn't get attention, the kind that no one claps for. She decided that her life would be smaller, so his could be bigger. And every night, as she wiped dust from desks where people chased their own careers, she was quietly building someone else's. No recognition, no praise, no one saying thank you, just the sound of a cloth against a table. The slow movement of footsteps in an empty office, and a woman who carried a dream that wasn't even hers. At least, that's what everyone believed, until one night. Something unexpected happened. Something small, but enough to finally make someone stop and truly see her. It happened on a rainy night, the kind of rain that makes the city feel quieter than usual. Most people had already gone home early. The office building was almost empty. Only a few lights remained on. And on the 12th floor, someone was still working. His name was David. He was new, young, ambitious, and always in a hurry. He had only been in the company for 3 months, but already felt like he was falling behind. So he stayed late, almost every night. That evening, he sat at his desk, staring at his screen. Numbers, deadlines, pressure. Everything felt heavy. He rubbed his eyes, then leaned back in his chair, and that's when he noticed her. Lynn. She was cleaning the desks across the room. Slowly, carefully, like always. But tonight, something felt different. Maybe it was the silence, maybe it was the rain tapping softly against the glass. Or maybe it was the way she paused, just for a moment, near the window. David watched her without meaning to. She sat down, reached into her bag, and took out her phone. He expected her to scroll or check messages like everyone else. But she didn't. She just looked at the screen, still, quiet, and then she smiled. Not a big smile, not loud, just soft, like she was holding something precious. David frowned slightly. He didn't know why, but something about that moment stayed with him. After a while, she stood up again, put the phone away, and continued working, as if nothing had happened, as if that small moment didn't matter. But for some reason, it did. Later that night, David went to the pantry to get water. When he came back, he accidentally knocked his coffee cup over. Dark liquid spread quickly across his desk. Papers, keyboard, everything. Damn, he muttered under his breath. Before he could react, she was already there, No hesitation, no questions, just action. She moved quickly, but not in a rushed way, in a focused way. She grabbed a cloth, wiped the surface gently, carefully moved his documents aside, making sure nothing was damaged. "It's okay," she said softly. Her voice was calm, almost reassuring. David stood there, slightly embarrassed. "Sorry, I didn't see." "It's all right," she replied, still cleaning, still focused. He watched her hands, steady, precise, like she had done this 1,000 times. Maybe she had. When she finished, she stepped back slightly, checked the desk one more time, then gave a small nod. "Done." David hesitated, then said something he hadn't said before. "Thank you." She looked at him for a moment, almost surprised, then smiled. That same soft smile. "You're welcome." And then she walked away, pushing her cart, quiet as always. But this time, David didn't go back to his screen immediately. He sat there, thinking about something simple, something he had never really considered before. Who was she? Not just the cleaning lady, but who was she really? Why did she work like that? Why did she seem so careful? And why did that small smile near the window feel more meaningful than anything he had done all day? That night, for the first time since he started working there, David didn't just see her. He noticed her, and without realizing it, a quiet curiosity began to grow, the kind that starts small, but slowly changes the way you see someone, because sometimes all it takes is one moment to begin seeing what was always there, but never truly seen. After that night, David started noticing things he had never seen before, not because they were hidden, but because he had never looked. Lynn still arrived at the same time, still used the same side entrance, still pushed the same small cart. Nothing about her had changed, but to David, everything felt different. He began to stay a little later than usual, not because of work, but because he was curious. Curious about her quiet routine, curious about the life behind those silent movements. One night, as she cleaned the desks near his, he spoke again. "You work here every night?" he asked. She paused for a moment, then nodded. "Yes." "Isn't it tiring?" he continued. She smiled lightly. "A little." Then she added, "But it's okay." That answer surprised him. It was simple. Too simple. As if tiredness didn't really matter. As if something else was more important. Over the next few nights, their conversations stayed small. Short questions, short answers, nothing personal. But something was slowly changing. The silence between them was no longer empty. It became comfortable. One evening, the rain returned. Soft at first, then heavier. The city lights blurred through the glass windows. Lynn sat in her usual place during her break, near the window. David watched from his desk. Then, after a moment of hesitation, he stood up and walked over. "Can I sit here?" he asked. She looked slightly surprised, then nodded. "Yes." They sat in silence for a few seconds, listening to the rain, watching the city below. Then David spoke again. "I saw you the other night," he said. She turned to him. "When you were looking at your phone." Her expression changed slightly, not defensive, just careful. "That picture," he continued gently. "Who is it?" She looked down at her hands, quiet. For a moment, David thought she wouldn't answer. Then slowly, she reached into her bag, took out the phone, and showed him. The same photo, a young boy, smiling brightly. "Me son," she said softly. David blinked. "Your son?" She nodded. "He lives in another city." "Why?" he asked without thinking. The question came out too quickly, too directly. But Lynn didn't seem upset. She just looked back at the photo. "Because he is studying," she said. "Studying what?" She paused, then answered quietly but clearly. "To become a doctor." David felt something shift inside him, a small, unexpected feeling. Respect, surprise, and something else he couldn't name. "That must be expensive," he said. She nodded. "Yes." Another pause. The rain grew heavier, filling the silence around them. Then David asked the question that had been sitting in his mind. Do you live alone? Lynn smiled again, that same soft smile. Yes. And you do all this for him? She didn't answer immediately. She just looked out at the rain, then said something very simple. He studies well. That was all. No complaints, no dramatic explanation, just that one sentence. But somehow, it said everything. David didn't speak after that, because he realized something. While he had been chasing success for himself, she had been quietly building someone else's future, without recognition, without anyone noticing. Except now, someone finally did. And in that quiet moment, with rain falling outside and the city moving on without them, David began to understand. This wasn't just a job for her. It was a sacrifice, a silent one, the kind that doesn't ask to be seen, but changes lives anyway. And for the first time, he didn't just admire her, he respected her, deeply. But what he didn't know yet was how far that sacrifice really went, and what it had already cost her. After that conversation, David couldn't stop thinking about her, not in a curious way anymore, but in a quiet, heavy way. The kind of thinking that doesn't leave easily, the kind that changes how you see things. He started noticing more, the small details, the things no one else paid attention to, like how Lynn always brought her own food, a small container, simple meals, rice, vegetables, sometimes just soup. Nothing expensive, nothing special, but always enough. He noticed her shoes, worn out, but clean, carefully maintained, like everything else in her life. He noticed how she never wasted anything, not time, not money, not even energy. Every movement had a purpose. Every action felt intentional. And slowly, something inside David began to shift. One night, he left the office earlier than usual, but something didn't feel right. So he came back, just to pick up a document he forgot. But deep down, he knew that wasn't the reason. When he returned, the building was almost empty. The lights were dim, and Lynn was still working. As always, he walked quietly, not wanting to disturb her. But then, he saw something he wasn't meant to see. Near the storage room, Lynn was sitting on a small chair, her head slightly lowered, one hand pressed gently against her side, her breathing uneven. David froze. For a moment, he didn't know what to do. Then he stepped forward. "Are you okay?" he asked. She looked up quickly. Surprised, then immediately, she straightened her back. "I'm fine," she said, too quickly. Too automatically. David frowned. "You don't look fine." She smiled. That same familiar smile. "I'm just a little tired." But this time, it didn't feel the same. It felt like something she had said too many times. Something she had practiced. David hesitated, then said quietly, "Have you seen a doctor?" For the first time, she didn't answer right away. Her eyes moved slightly, as if thinking, as if deciding. Then she shook her head. "No." "Why not?" he asked. The question came out softer this time, less direct, more careful. Lynn looked down at her hands, then said something so simple that it almost didn't sound important. "I don't have time." David felt something tighten in his chest. "But your health?" "It's okay," she interrupted gently, and then she stood up, slowly, carefully, as if trying to hide the effort. "I still have work to finish," and just like that, she moved past him, pushing her cart, continuing her routine, as if nothing had happened. But something had, because David stood there, unable to move. He understood now. Her life wasn't just simple, it was limited. Every choice she made was for one purpose, her son, and anything outside of that, even her own pain, didn't seem to matter. That night, David didn't go back to work. He sat at his desk, staring at nothing, thinking about everything, about ambition, about sacrifice, about what people are willing to give up for someone they love, and for the first time in a long while, he felt something he hadn't expected. Not pressure, not competition, but humility. Because in a quiet office, after everyone had gone home, a woman no one noticed was carrying a weight heavier than anything he had ever faced, and she was doing it alone, without asking for help, without asking to be seen. But now, someone had seen her, and David knew. He couldn't pretend he hadn't. The next night, David didn't wait. He arrived earlier than usual, not for work, but for her. He didn't know exactly what he was going to say, or what he could even do. But one thing was clear in his mind. He couldn't ignore it anymore. When Lynn arrived, nothing about her had changed. Same quiet steps, same small cart, same gentle movements. But this time, David walked straight toward her. "Can we talk for a moment?" he asked. She looked slightly surprised, then nodded. They sat near the window. The same place, the same silence, but a different feeling. David took a breath. "I've been thinking," he said slowly, "about what you told me about your son." She didn't respond, just listened, carefully. "And about you," he added. That made her look at him, a little confused. "You work every night," he continued. "You send almost everything to him." She stayed quiet, because it was true. "And you're not taking care of yourself." That part. She didn't answer. David hesitated, then said something he wasn't sure she would accept. "Let me help you." Lynn's expression changed immediately, not angry, but firm. "No," she said gently. "It's okay." "I mean it," David insisted. "You need to see a doctor. At least check." She shook her head. "I'm fine." There it was again. That same sentence. But this time, David didn't step back. "Why?" he asked softly. "Why won't you accept help?" She looked away, toward the city lights. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then finally, she spoke. "If I spend money on myself," she paused, as if choosing her words carefully, "he will have less." David felt that sentence land heavily. Simple, clear, unbreakable. That was her world. That was her choice. And she had already accepted it. But something inside David refused to accept it. Not anymore. So instead of arguing, he changed his approach. "What if," he said slowly, "it doesn't come from you?" She turned back to him. "What do you mean?" David took a deep breath, then said the one thing that had been forming in his mind since the night before. "I want to pay for your checkup." She immediately shook her head. "No." But this time, her voice was softer, less certain. "It won't affect your son," David continued. "It won't take anything away from him." She stayed silent, and for the first time, she didn't say no again. The silence stretched between them, not uncomfortable, but heavy, full of something unspoken. Then slowly, Lynn lowered her eyes and nodded. Just a little, that was all. But it meant everything. A few days later, David drove her to the hospital. They didn't talk much on the way, but they didn't need to. Some moments don't need words, they need presence. Time passed, tests were done, results came, and what they found changed everything. It wasn't just tiredness, it was something more serious, something that needed treatment soon, very soon. When the doctor explained everything, Lynn didn't cry. She didn't panic. She just listened. Quietly, like she always did. Then asked one question. "Can I still work?" David closed his eyes for a moment. Because even now, even here, her first thought was not herself. It was him, her son. That night, as they left the hospital, the city looked the same. The lights, the noise, the movement, but something had changed because a story that no one noticed was finally seen. A sacrifice that stayed hidden for years was finally understood, and a woman who carried everything alone was no longer alone. Min would one day become a doctor. He would wear a white coat. He would help people. He would build a future his mother dreamed of. But behind that future was a truth few would ever fully understand. That every step he took forward was built on her silent steps in the dark. And sometimes, the strongest people in the world are not the ones who stand in the spotlight, but the ones who keep going, quietly, so someone else can shine. If this story touched you, take a moment. Think about someone in your life who has been quietly sacrificing for you. Maybe they never asked for thanks. Maybe they never told you their struggles, but they were there, always. And maybe today is the day you finally see them.